Today's guest is someone who's flipped hundreds of homes and built a reputation as one of the most experienced and thoughtful voices in the real estate investing world. I'm Kathy Fettke, and welcome to the RealWealth Show.
You're listening to the RealWealth Show with Kathy Fettke, the real estate investor's resource.
Today, my guest is Tarl Yarber, a good friend and someone who chose flipping over other strategies. Today, we're going to find out how he shifted to buy and hold rentals as a recovering house flipper, as he calls himself. And before we get started, as a thank you to our listeners, we're giving away a couple of chapters of my book, Retire Rich with Rentals. If you want to find out more about how to be a buy and hold investor, just visit realwealth.com/retire rich to download that for free. Tarl, I can't believe it, but you are finally on the Real Wealth Show. We finally got you.
This is the happiest moment of my life. I have been your best friend, specifically your husband's best friend, for 8 years now, and I'm finally on your show. So I'm very excited about this.
I know you became friends with me first,
Yes.
and I say that in quotes just to get to him. I know.
Yes, this is a true story.
Well, we waited for this moment because the timing is right somehow. But let's start with who you are for our audience who somehow doesn't know who Tarl is.
Tarl Yarber. I live in Austin, Texas, currently right now. But as far as in business, what I'm more known for is that I've done a little over 650 deals, mostly specifically fix and flips over the years. In 2018, I'd say I became a recovering house flipper, which is where I focused instead of on flips and making income, which was kind of a huge regret of mine if I look back. I started recovering and becoming a more of a BRRRR and rental buyer. So I started buying and holding pretty much only buying and holding as much as possible since 2018. I also run an events company that Kathy's been on a bunch of my stages, and there's one big event coming up that she's coming to as well called Limitless Expo that I do with Ken McElroy. It's coming up as quick here. And then I also have a lending company called Fixated Funding where we lend out hard money to investors.
And I got to say, the Limitless conference is probably is my favorite because you guys do such a great job and you bring in such high level people like Robert Kiyosaki will be there for those who haven't met him yet. Ken McElroy, who I'm pretty sure I put you in contact with, and now you guys are best friends. So
yeah, I think it's somebody else, but anyway.
Well, I know, but it was the person I put you in contact with that put you in contact anyway.
Yeah, connecting the dots. Love it.
But you really bring in some incredible speakers, and it's just a really well organized and super fun event. But high level, high level, which is what I love about it. So high net worth people, if you're looking for a place to rub elbows with other high net worth people and see what they're doing, this is definitely the place to be. I think there was a couple billionaires there last time.
Yeah, it's honestly so if you guys don't know Ken McElroy, he wrote the ABCs of real estate investing. He basically runs all of Robert Kiyosaki's real estate, but Ken has a few billion in real estate that he runs for himself personally. He's legit, right? So him and I created Limitless together because we wanted to be the attendees at the event, right? There just wasn't anything out there that brought together high level, not just high net worth, but high level operators. And if there was some cool event, they usually sold something, and we don't allow sales from the stage. It's all education. But in addition to that, it's honestly, Ken and I just wanted to find out what was going on with the world back in 2022 because the world was changing dramatically pretty fast. So we just said, why don't we just get a whole bunch of really cool people together and start selfishly asking questions and finding out for ourselves. And that became Limitless. And now 2,000 people come to it every year. We don't sell from the stage. Everything is pure networking and everything is pure education. And it's really just to find out what to do with today's market, today's economy, what's going on with business, finance, real estate. What do we do going forward? What are the solutions to help create certainty in these uncertain times?
That is exactly why I created the Real Wealth Show too. Yeah. It's it's a platform where I can have cool people on like you. Finally, you made it.
Finally.
No, it was always because of your too busy schedule. So let's move on. Won't give you a chance to answer that. How did you get started and what were you doing before real estate? Because one of the things that you famously say is you actually hate real estate. So let's talk about how you got in it.
Yeah. So I'm 40 years old now. So 20, it's crazy to say, half my lifetime ago, at age 20, I was in college. I worked at Sears full time, and then I also did about 15 plus units in a semester at college. And then I was also in Air Force ROTC. I was going to go straight to the military, and then long story short, I had a major financial issue happen to me, and I was looking for a way to like make more money somehow. I had read Rich Dad Poor Dad when I was 17, so I was always kind of like in my head that I should do real estate wise. And there was a conference in Los Angeles. This is 2005, called the Learning Annex.
Oh yeah, I
And
used to teach at the Learning Annex.
yeah,
That's so
and
funny.
it was called Real Estate Wealth Expo, is what it was called. And Robert Kiyosaki was speaking there, right?
Yep.
And so I'm like, I gotta go. So college student broke, but tickets were only like $99, right? And
It would
spoiler
suck
alert,
you in
I
to,
don't know.
to
So spoiler alert, something, especially running an events conference company, when you have massive keynote speakers like this guy, I mean, they had Donald Trump as a keynote speaker that year. When they have those and the ticket's only $100, they're gonna sell you something. That's exactly what happens at those. That's why it's $99, is to get as many people as there as possible. When it's a real conference and the ticket's priced more expensive, traditionally they're not really selling you anything. But anyways, so I bought it and I drove down to LA. I was living in Sacramento, and then while I was there, there's a speaker that was speaking about like overcoming your fears and taking action and being a millionaire and all this stuff. And like for whatever reason, it hypnotized me to go take my charge card, American Express, run to the back of the room and buy this guy's program for like $1,500, which at the time, being 20 and broke, it was like $15,000 to me.
yeah.
And so I bought it. Now it wasn't even a real estate course. It was like it wasn't Tony Robbins, it was like a Tony Robbins type thing. And I found myself going, how the heck am I going to pay this $1,500 in the next 30 days on my charge card? So there was another program that was like a side Expo, kind of like side hustle program, that was called How to Turn $10 into $10,000 in 30 days or less. And I'm like, okay, I got $10 and I got 30 days to make $1,500. So let's do this. And it was about wholesaling and assigning contracts in real estate. And I bought that program for $900. It was just books and CDs, no actual seminar. And that's how I got into real estate. So it was
I've
doing that.
known you so long and I did not know this story. That's amazing. And how full circle that now you have Kiyosaki, who is
Yeah,
your sort of guiding light as a speaker at your event, not selling anything from the stage.
dude, it's crazy like where life can take you. So I actually met Robert Kiyosaki at that Learning Next thing because I stood in line to get a book signed. And I had my Rich Dad book, and he's like super like my hero at that time. And I hand him my book, and I like mumble, "Hey, I read everything you do. And he just looked at me like there was something wrong with me, and because I mumbled and I could barely keep a straight look him in the eye, and then he signed it and just like hand it back like there's something wrong with this dude. To the point now, like, yeah, I've known him personally since 2022 now, and like, we actually know each other and stuff. It's been crazy. So,
Yeah.
anyways, it's weird how the world works.
Yeah. Just amazing. And you are one of those people, I will say, who creates that kind of luck. You go after, I think you even have a saying about it, but you just definitely go after what you want and you don't make any excuses. You just go for it. And I love that. So a lot of people would have bought those kind of programs and done nothing with it, but you did something with it and you started wholesaling to pay off that, that other credit card. That's not the easiest thing to do. How did you get
No.
into it?
So ultimately it was without realizing I burnt my boats basically. And I had, almost a $3,000 debt, which and right now today you're like, oh, that's, most Americans have what, $13,000 in credit card debt or more or something like that. I'm guessing right now. I actually haven't looked it up recently. But to me, that was like everything. I made less than $1,000 a month, and had to pay my bills. I went to college, all that stuff. And so I had to work at it. So it basically 6 months later, I did finally make money in real estate, but within that 6 month period, I had, not only gotten in more credit card debt because I dropped out of college. I quit my job. I went full time into trying to like make money in real estate. And I ended up like going into collections on everything because I pulled all my cash advances out just so I could pay for groceries with the intention of not paying it back until I had money. And so I went to collections, and 6 months later, I got a good deal, and it actually closed with $100,000 net profit that I split with another guy 60-40, and I got 60, he got 40.
Wow.
And I was 21 at the time by then. And then I paid all my credit card debt off and then didn't do real estate again. That was 2006 until 2000 to the end of 2010. So
Really?
for 4 years, I didn't do it again. So I made that check and I'm like, I'm out. This sucks. And because basically wholesaling it real estate, you have to be, they make it sound so easy, but you have to be an expert on acquisitions and rehab and a bunch of stuff to be able to make these deals work. It's actually not easy. It's cheap, I guess, because you don't have to actually buy the property. You're selling a contract instead of selling a property. But it's not easy when you don't know anything. I didn't know anything. So I would just door knock. I was terrified. I got a lot of weird stories that I went through then, but yeah, I'd be crying in my car like a little kid because I'd be like, it was, I'd go up to the door and then never knock on it and turn around and like get back in my car and drive away. And then I'd pull off the side of the road and start crying about why am I such a bit, whatever. Like it just couldn't.
I wish I could have seen baby Tarl and given him a big hug.
I keep meaning to find photos back then. And then I got lucky on a deal and I paid off my credit cards and I just never went back until 2010 when the market shifted and really
And that brought you back in.
Yeah, it's a long story on that one. This would take you all hours to break it all down, but by accident, I got back into it and then we started, for lack of a better word, flipping. I had a partnership and that lasted well until February 2014. We did hundreds of deals in that short period of time. And then this is during REO, foreclosures, bank-owned properties, that kind of thing. And then the partnership collapsed in 2014 between me and two other guys. I then took 6 months off saying, I'm never doing real estate again. Real estate sucks. I still only do it for money. But another weird stuff happened in my life that brought real estate back to me in October 2014, 6 to 8 months later. And I went full board in it again and haven't stopped. Just my priorities have changed over time. But it's not that real estate is me, is that real estate allows me to live the life I really want to live. And it was like a mental shift from I'm a real estate investor to no, I'm Tarl. I'm somebody that loves to travel, be with friends, be with family, have great experiences. And the only way I can really do that is through real estate. So real estate is my vehicle. And it was a massive mental shift for me that year to where I'm like, I need to start keeping these properties a lot more instead of having to like grind and feed the machine with flips, which gives you a very high income, but it does not build you wealth. And with a high income, that comes high taxes. And I had that mental shift in late 2017, early 2018. And I completely now today, real estate is just a vehicle to me. It's an investment vehicle. It's not my business, even though it kind of is, if that makes sense. So
You came over to the bright side.
I did. It's
yes.
better.
Well, no, I really want to make that distinction because people don't often understand that and they see so many flip shows on TV and it looks so sexy and exciting and then they go to do their first flip and you're like, what? This isn't the way I thought it would be. It's work. It's a job versus an investment. Would you say? I mean, what would you say is the difference?
So I would say that I just did something with this. I have a fun group called Flippers Anonymous, which is for addicts trying to become, buy and hold guys instead. We talked about this yesterday and how in flips, there's technically 3 steps, right? Buy a messed up property, fix it up, and then sell it. That's it. It's that easy. You buy my program today, whatever. But that's it. But in reality, it's not that simple. There's a lot of stuff that happens in between. And the thing that actually messes most people up is that middle part, which is fix the house up. It's all the construction. Most of us don't get into real estate because we love rehab and construction. We love the before and we love the after, and we kind of ignore everything in between. And that I think is what hurts most real estate investors is operations. You could be great at acquisitions, but if you want to get to dispo or stabilization, you have to be great at operations, which is everything in between the acquisition and the stabilization.
You actually have to be good at all of it, right? Because if
You
you
do,
don't,
but-
if you don't buy right, if you don't estimate the right sales price, I mean, there's so many parts of it where you can screw up. Like you can't just be a weekend warrior and guess.
Yeah, what I'm trying to say though is that what I find over the years, especially with house flippers, is that they can go find a deal, they just can't operate it, and so
For sure.
what kills their ability to scale, grow, get out of the rat race of it is that middle part of operations, and even being able to connect the dots. If there's people out there that are great at acquisitions and that's all they focus on, and they wonder why the rest of their business isn't doing good. And
Hmm.
then, but this comes with like levers, Kathy. So like, if you're really good at finding juicy deals, you can actually mess up operations and still make money. If you're really good at operations and construction, you can actually buy tighter margin deals as long as you know how to underwrite it, because you know what your numbers are in operations. So it's kind of a give or take. And what I found is usually you're good at one or the other. But what hurts most people is if they're not good at either one. So, but
Yeah.
what prevents them from scaling is operations, like almost always.
That's
And
kind of true for buy and hold too, though, right? Like you could buy a great property and then just mess it up with the wrong management of that.
absolutely. And you're seeing that a lot today, right? With what's going on. There's people that got into the business a couple of years ago and bought maybe bad deals at a bad, especially in multifamily, and they weren't able to execute the operations of the business, which is one of the reasons why maybe they're not able to refinance right now, or they missed their window of opportunity for that despite other things. So
Yeah. Okay, so you're switching from the, I guess, the quick fix of flipping, which there's a time and a place for that. If you don't have a lot of money to invest in buy and hold, it's kind of hard to get started, right? I mean, would you say flipping is a good place to start if you don't have money?
I think flipping, well, you need money to flip, but you need other people's money in this business either way. So, what I think is that if you want to keep more properties, you need active income. Like you need some sort of way to put down payments down on properties. If you're doing the Burr method, buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat, in today's market, you're going to leave money in that deal, right? So, even the finding an infinite Burr, which is a property that once you're done fixing it up, you refinance it and you get 100% of your money out and it still cash flows. That's a unicorn today. Like that's not normal. In 2018, that was very normal for me, right? In 2025, that is not normal. And so, but it's also not normal in the history of real estate to have infinite burrs either, right? It's
Right.
actually not normal. So it's what's normal is leaving 10, 20% into the deal, right? That's real estate, you're investing. But where do you get that 10, 20%? You have to have money, right? So something that I'm a big fan of still to this day is that you buy property. If you're buying single family and you want to and you're doing it full time in some capacity and maybe or for income, then yeah, you need to flip. Like you're not going to make much on $200 a month cash flow, right? To retire on, but you're also not going to save enough money for another down payment on $200 a month cash flow for another property. So either you have a high net worth job, you have some other way to make money somewhere or whatnot that allows you to take your extra dollars and then put it into real estate. Awesome. Do that all day. If you don't have that and you want to do this faster, then maybe flipping is a good tool, but it's a tool as a strategy to keep more properties. So today, what I do is that we'll still flip, but the only reason we're flipping is to put that money back into other properties that we're keeping. And even the properties we're keeping, the only reason we're keeping those is to 1031 exchange into better properties later. And so it's my entire strategy is like keep the best, sell the rest, and to 1031 exchange all day until it's in a property that I would live in.
Really?
Mhm.
Why?
Well, because like then you're going from C class to B class or whatever people call it these days. I don't know, but and then B class to A class. If it's a property like right now, if we're buying flips, like I'll give you an example. I'm buying in Savannah, Georgia, and so like I'm not a huge fan of the properties there because they're all 120-year-old houses, right?
Yeah.
So they're kind of a pain to rehab, right? But it's happens because of my career in Seattle, we got pretty good at it for older houses. So but there's a lot of areas in Savannah that are still gentrifying, right? And those projects might not be ones I'd want to live in, right? When they're done being fixed up, but they cash flow today. And so if they cash flow when I'm done doing the remodels and so forth, which is very realistic, I might have left 10% into it. I might have left money into it to make it cash flow because it has to cash flow. I will not keep a negative cash flowing asset at all. And no matter how much I have to leave in it, it has to cash flow. But that property, I'm not going to live in it. But 3, 4, 5 years from now, let's say that market does better, then why not 1031 exchange into another neighborhood and go from a one unit house to a duplex in a better neighborhood, right? Or even another city. And maybe I would have never bought that duplex today because I'd have to leave 200 grand into it for the cash flow. But that single family that I forced the appreciation into because of construction and rehab, that's why flips are actually, it's good to learn to flip because you learn how to force appreciation through construction and rehab. I forced the appreciation. So let's say I bought a property for 100,000, put 50 into it. It's worth 200 when I'm done remodeling it, right? And I'll refinance it, great. Leave some money in it. It cash flows, cool. Well, let's say 3 to 5 years from now, let's say it's worth 300 grand, right? Hopefully, you never know. Let's say it is, right? It might not be. It might be worth less. But let's say it is. Let's say it's worth 300. Well, I could sell it now and 1031 exchange, and I have roughly, as far as on the numbers wise, 150 to go put somewhere. Well, that 150 to me is monopoly money because it's equity and it's growth and it's forced appreciation in the property. And I could take that 150 and use it as a down payment on a duplex in a better neighborhood when I would never have put 150 of my money into a down payment on a property because it's too much money, in my opinion. I could go buy 10 other properties with that. And so, but I could do that with a 1031 exchange though. And so, and I continue to do that. Now 10 years, my future self, 10, 15 years from now is going to love me. And so that's what I mean by like 1031ing until it's in a property that you would live in just means you're just 1031ing until it's in a neighborhood and a community or a level that is a higher level, like an A-class aspect with 1031 money.
But you're not saying you actually would live in it.
No, I'm not saying that at all.
Okay.
I'm saying that it's
nice enough that you would.
Yeah, keep the best, sell the rest. And so,
yeah.
And by sell the rest doesn't mean you spend the money. It means that you 1031. So that's the idea there.
When you're starting out, though, a lot of people want to go into these cheaper properties and C-class neighborhoods because they're cheap. But a lot of times those are the areas that don't appreciate and that property won't get to 300,000. So what about that?
No, you're completely right. So that's part of market analysis, which is what you're good at, Kathy. So is looking at, there are parts of the US that, yes, you can buy the cheap house because you have 80 grand to buy or whatever. There's a couple concepts there besides just like the 80 grand and it's cheap. It's also that a $5,000 roof on an $80,000 house is the same as a $5,000 roof on a $200,000 house. So construction cost is not the same. It's not cheaper because it's on a cheaper house. Yeah. Construction is construction. It has to do with the city for sure because of labor and whatnot for construction. But if you're buying in a bad neighborhood, or for lack of a better word, bad neighborhood, and the house is 80 grand, if that same city has another neighborhood that's 200 grand or 300 grand, the construction should be relatively the same cost. But your ratios are going to change dramatically on that $80,000 house than it would on a $200,000 or $300,000 house because of how much money you're outlaying. Additionally, for appreciation, then if your goal is pure cash flow and that's it, and you don't care about appreciation, then absolutely. Man, I can't help but think though, in this business with single family, if you want to get wealthy in single family, you have to have appreciation. Yeah. And pure cash flow is great if you're retiring and stabilizing, but if you're trying to build and grow, then you need that appreciation for it to pay off. That's my opinion, at least. I absolutely could be wrong on that, but that's just what I do though. So
that's absolutely true in my experience and seeing over 88,000 people now investing in different things. And in our own fund, we had a property fund where we had super cash flow properties in Detroit and Ohio, and then properties that just broke even in Florida, but were in really high growth areas. At the end, after 5 years, when we sold off everything, the cash flow properties maybe made a 6% return IRR, each year after sales costs and so forth and appreciation. And the Florida properties were about 28%. So there's no comparison.
Yeah, and it's just one of the risks, of course, is that you can never bet on appreciation. So
that's right.
Everything that, depending on where you're at in your business and your life, for me personally, I'm looking for an area like, hey, how do I get both? Right? We all want both. So I believe this, right? I think it's very, very hard to find both, right, in the same area and do it well. That's why I like the 1031 model. So I might be forcing the appreciation through construction or rehab and then instead of selling it and flipping it and getting hit with a tax bill, why not just put a tenant in it for a year or two, right? I already have the appreciation because I forced it through construction. So I already have it. I'm just avoiding my taxes by keeping a tenant in it for a year or two. And by doing that, then even if it's the same number, right? I get cash flow. So I get a little bit of money on that, but I'm actually saving money and making more money because I'm not paying taxes on that money. And so if I would, let's say that same house, that 150 purchase and construction and 200 resale, after closing costs, maybe you make 35 grand on that. Cool. All right. Well, you're going to pay taxes on that 35 grand if you sold it for 200,000. Or let's say I put a tenant in it and it cash flows $200 a month. Yay, right? You're not going to retire off that, but it cash flows $200 a month. I still have that 35 grand that I can get out of it if I decide to sell it. So let's say I hold on to it for a year or two. Well, $200 a month, that's 2,400 a year, right? Or 4,800 for 2 years. So I made a little bit of money on it, but then I go to sell it 2 years later for 200 grand. Let's say it didn't appreciate at all, right? Chances are that's not the case, but let's say it didn't. Well, now that 35 grand that I make on that deal, instead of paying taxes on it, which at my bracket would be a lot of money, I'm paying no taxes on it because I'm 1031 exchanging it to another property. Even if I sold it and didn't 1031 exchange, I'm paying less than half the taxes as I would on my active income. So I actually made more money by waiting. Right now, there is a question of the power of what you can do with that money if you had it up front. Maybe that 35 grand that's taxed today, I could have like made that 200 grand doing other things. That is an absolute legitimate argument. But if you don't know what you're going to do with it, then don't take it. Right? It's kind of my idea. Leave it in the savings account, which is the real estate property.
Yeah, and if you're looking at 2,400 in cash flow with the 35,000 that's sitting there, that's not a terrible return.
Correct.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, and that's your return on
year.
equity. That's your return on equity because that 35 grand is new money you created because you forced it through construction.
Yeah, love it. Okay, well, if you all listening are interested in more strategy from experienced investors, I really do recommend going to the Limitless conference. I'll be there with, 2,000 of Tarl's best friends.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, if you guys show up. But yeah, it's limitlessexpo.com. So if you go to go.limitlessexpo.com, if you actually use RealWealth as your promo code, you'll get 15% off thanks to Kathy. So RealWealth is the promo code, but go to go.limitlessexpo.com. You'll see all the lineup, the schedule. It's going to be in Dallas. It's July 31st to August 2nd this year coming up. And Kathy will be there along with her beautiful husband, Rich Fettke.
He is beautiful.
Will be there as well.
Yeah, I agree. Tarl, wow. I feel like a dummy not having you earlier. You're so good. So helpful. Thank you so much for being here on the RealWealth Show.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining me here on the RealWealth Show. I hope this was valuable to see the big difference between flipping and buy and hold. And again, as a thank you to our listeners, we're giving away a couple of chapters of my book, Retire Rich with Rentals, that will give you some of the nuts and bolts of buy and hold investing. You can get that download for free at realwealth.com/retire rich.
Views and opinions expressed in this podcast are provided for informational purposes only and should not be construed as an offer to buy or sell any securities,